Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, everybody. Welcome back.
So there's a lot going on, as is the case in these times of the apocalypse.
There is so much going on, and not just in the 3D either. Things are rocking and rolling all over the place.
Yeah, maybe we should hold some of our observations till towards the end, because there's a lot of things that have been happening that are signs of the times, and a lot of people are going through the same things. But let's take a look what's happening first with the Earth changes. And so we see geologists closely monitoring rising magma under Oregon volcanic region. Three Sisters area. Things are coming back to life and there's uplift going on. And I actually saw this a couple of days ago, but it was when the guides came through and they gave Cindy a message, look towards the northwest. They were concerned with the northwest. I decided we need to pay a little bit more attention to this because, this area has had uplift in the past, but these times are different. And frankly, everything is different after Tonga.
Right. Everything has changed. The whole vibrational scenario of everything is different. And those that are in the know, they're not telling us everything. But I know a lot of people have felt things be a lot different. There's a frequency change, which has thrown many, many people off of their center. And we need to get back to where we're comfortable.
Absolutely. And with Tonga, we got, again, that it was what we term artificially flavored. So people have asked, and yes, we'll reaffirm, we think that there was definitely non-natural components to it. It was triggered.
Yes.
And it was actually more impactful than I think we still even realize. And we talked to our good friend David Devine today, because I noticed he hadn't made videos in a couple of days, so I was like checking up, saying everything okay, and he's fine. He put a video up today. He was just taking time to unplug, and honestly, a lot of us are doing that. We were just talking to our brother Zach. Hey Zach, who said that he's stopped listening to all his channels that he used to listen to, and he's only listening to us, and we are grateful and thankful, and honestly, that made me cover even more. It's just thinking, a lot of people are really interested in covering like all these little things. Even though we desire to get so much more into the uplifting spiritual side of things, there's a lot of things that we really have to keep our eyes on. And if you're living in the Pacific Northwest, obviously, Cascadia is huge. And just the different possibilities that are up there. We've seen Mount St. Helens in my lifetime go off, and that affected things. It was a big eruption. And we have Mount Rainier up there. We have all sorts of potential issues up there. And we have a lot of people constantly talking about if Cascadia goes and what would happen. And here we see the tsunami that could kill thousands. Can they build an escape? As you're looking at one area up here in Washington, when it did go back, 1700, I believe was the year it went. So over 300 years ago. And it did cause a massive wave that wiped out whole villages. And of course, it was just the indigenous people that were there at that time. One thing people I don't think realize, how many of you out there, let me just put this out there, because many of you might realize it, but how many out there realize that Alaska down to Northern California was actually part of Russia at one time?
Right. I'm not very good when it comes to geography anyway, but that's a really good snippet of information you got there.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how things have changed over time. But this would be a massive, massive problem. And, if Cascadia does go, that's a biggie. That's a real biggie, and it could trigger the San Andreas. And I think it was about 3 years ago, right around now, it was February, like 3 years ago, where the guys had showed me, it's like I was watching the news, because, that basically had happened. I think it was an 8.3 is what they listed it at in my, dream vision. But let's put that intention out there that we'll have warning. And again, so much of it depends on if there's any sort of artificial flavoring going on, because that changes everything. And another thing we've gotten is the guides have come through loud and clear that, and I've had this feeling my entire life, it's going to get colder. And yes, there is a grand solar minimum. I think we had like one new person to the channel make a comment because we talked about the artificial flavoring and saying, don't you know there's a grand solar minimum going on? Yes, we've talked about that thousands and thousands of times. There is a grand solar minimum. There's a magnetic pole reversal underway as well. And the last full one, was so long ago and overdue. And yet there is this artificial enhancement that goes on as well. And what we've gotten is about 40% of what you see is definitely technologically driven. So it's almost 50-50 at this point. The technology that's out there to control the weather is just obvious. All you got to do is look at declassified documents. And yet, most definitely, we are seeing a lot more volcanic activity. This is going to end up cooling things off even more. So again, there's so many decisions to make in people's lives. Many people are trying to find their perfect spot. And we have so many family members that have moved in like the last year, EEARTS, Evolutionary family members, that have gone to where their guides are guiding them. Or also, in many cases where logic is guiding them as well. Or geopolitical, because that's the thing that's right in our face right now.
Yeah, the geopolitical one is really important. But right now people are feeling magnetically pulled to this place or that place. And I ask you to listen to that magnetic pull because it's your guides talking. At one point on this planet, everyone had their own communication with the planet themselves, and that has been broken, but it doesn't mean it's gone for everyone forever. If you're feeling pulled this way or that way, please listen to that. That's your guides reaching out to you.
Absolutely. And we've made videos talking about best places, tons of best places videos, and many people seems drawn either to the Four Corners area or to the Ozark or Ouachita area, or off to the Appalachians. Every area has its own challenges, and you got to look at the specific locations in the areas closely. I had shared once with you guys, I saw this amazing log cabin, and it was under $100,000 on some, I think, 3 acres. Well, and this was in southern Missouri. Well, it turns out there was massive flooding in the area, and the whole town was like submerged, at one point in time. So that's why it was so cheap. Unfortunately, it's hard to find that pot of gold. That's a no-brainer. But again, use your deductive reasoning, but listen to the heart, listen to that intuition, because we do have beings that are constantly trying to guide us. They are there. It's just a matter of us listening to them. So here's yet another one. This one erupts in the Kuril Islands. This is in Russia. And this is one of the most active volcanoes in the Kuril Islands. It erupted at least 11 times over the past 230 years. So, again, these volcanoes, both the ones that are relatively active, and then some that are not so active, and then some that are showing life that haven't erupted in thousands or even 10,000 years, those are the ones to watch. When you see those going off, we're into it big time. But here you could listen to a lady as she's watching it erupt, and my only thought is, I hope you're far enough away. Don't underestimate these things.
Right. When it's time to go somewhere safe, don't waste time taking a video. Get somewhere safe first.
Yeah, that always boggles my mind. Selfies off, while you're falling off a cliff. And here we see Krakatoa erupts again. Another eruption over there. New eruption. This is just one after another. All of it is adding to the cooling that's coming, and it is underway. But you're going to see, still wild swings, and you're still going to see record highs as well as record cold. But we can sure see one thing. That's that Al Gore certainly profited off of book sales based on, the poles being melted by now and we'd all be waist deep in water all on the coast. It hasn't happened. So one thing I don't do is I don't trust anything mainstream.
No, not at all. There's just no point in it because you know that they have their own agenda, and that's to herd people a certain area. So that's why we're always talking about, find your own inner voice, because people have different needs, and no one person can really channel for a group of people where to be when you have your own specific needs. Mike and I are even being pulled in a little bit of a different direction. So we're going to listen to that, and we're going to do what we think is best for us.
Absolutely. Travel lightly, so to speak, and have backups to your backups. So, and I shared it with you guys. I mean, I was drawn. I've lived in kind of like all the safe zones, quote unquote, so to speak. If we talk about the big three safe zones, the Appalachian Mountains, I was up there close to Asheville, like in the Waynesville area. But while there, I heard, hillsides collapsing, when we got some serious rain. And I've seen roads, blocked off and trees falling down. And, you could run into problems in any of these safe zones. We were in New Mexico. And, of course, we were in the Four Corners area. And, we had the drought. There were wildfires, scary wildfires out in Nevada when we were out that ways. We've been all over the states, and, you got to kind of go and be a little flexible. Another thing the guides have told us is that in these times, there's going to be people on the coast that are not expecting to move, but they're going to have to just pack up and move because things are going to happen that's going to force people to move at certain periods of time, even when you have no intention, you don't want to leave. But there will be massive migrations of people just because these things are going to keep increasing. And that's a given. We can get in harmony with Mother Earth, and then we'll have some advance warning for the natural stuff. But again, things that could be triggered by technology, artificial flavoring, so to speak, that just depends on when somebody's going to actually trigger that technology. So that's a little trickier.
It is, and I do have friends that are so sensitive they can pick up on that artificial technology. I have one friend that is so sensitive. She felt both times when there was something going on with Tonga, even that one event and then the disturbance, and she felt really cranky, and it was really magnified for her, so she can feel the natural and the unnatural.
Absolutely. So then the geopolitical became the number one driving thing because that was right in our faces when we got stopped at roadblocks in New Mexico that seriously were creepy. Like 24 cop cars in a town that has 200 people checking people, checking your driving with masks and stuff. So yeah, we were like, okay. So let's try another spot, but hey, that's why we got the camper. So, we can go anywhere at any time if need be. And we listen to the guides too, very closely. So, when they say go, we go, and they've saved our lives multiple times. 9 killed in 3 days after more than 100 avalanches hit Austria. Authorities say this is unprecedented, as heavy snowfall followed by warm weather makes for dangerous conditions. Absolutely. We can see this. Now, the tendency is going towards the cold. Record-shattering heavy snow hits parts of Japan. And we have France bracing for blackouts, fires up old coal power plants to cope. And as we were talking about with Japan, snowiest winter. And the northern hemisphere's snow mass is driving higher. And then scores more are dying in India as well, in Delhi, as their cold wave brings regions their first snow since 1958. And we also have red alerts issued for parts of Iceland as intense snow and blizzards hit the country over there as well. And, be aware of the volcanic activity over there. I feel there's, big potential for big eruptions over there for sure. And then that could really affect Europe, as can the flow of the Gulf Stream as well, which is weakening. So at some point, if that turns off, if the Beaufort Gyre flushes out, which is basically fresh water up in the Arctic, flushes out, disrupts the flow, then it really will be amazingly cold, amazingly quick in Europe and also in New England.
Right. I mean, all of this is just really intensifying, and it's a little bit scary to watch, but here we are. We're living it, so we have to kind of prepare wherever possible.
And in South Africa, we have 3 missing, dozens evacuated after floods going on over there. We've seen so many cities. I mean, look at all those houses that are underwater now. It's just insane. Power outages, parts of North and West Auckland following heavy rain as well. It's a global situation, and then yet we still have the drought. And everything is leading towards food shortages, food inflation in general. At some point in time, we know we're going to have a great financial reset. The whole system is going to be collapsing. And, of course, we'll be heading towards a digital currency at that point, which, again, is going to lead to less ability to lead your life the way you want it. So the most imperative thing is self-sufficiency and being able to, provide for yourself as much as possible, getting together with neighbors, friends, family, just people that you can start to count on. Get outside of the system as much as possible.
Right. And if I may just point to a most recent incidents where I don't want to talk too openly about it, but where a very large group of people standing up for their rights had some financial assistance coming, and it was just yanked because it was, on the digital end of things, and it was just pulled from them. That's what we're going to be looking at too. They'll be able to control us just like that.
Okay, and so you guys know what we're talking about, obviously, with the convoy and all. And so not to get into big a depth, but just to make it, and it's not feasible. We understand in this world, you got people giving donations from all different places. There could be people in Europe donating, people in South America, people in Africa, people in Asia donating. But see, this is where, you can't really, well, they're trying to, and we'll cover this on the next video over on Evolutionary. But per se, if you went up to somebody and you gave them a grocery bag full of food, or, maybe even brought them some supplies, it's in their hands. There's no way it could be monitored unless, camera surveillance, they're watching everything, as we know. They're listening to every single word we say on this video. This is why when you process videos now, it takes 10 times as long. They run through check after check after check because they're monitoring and watching every single thing we do. This is the world we live in. We have to reverse that. And so we have to get out of the system. Don't rely on the technology. I actually think, going back to more ancient ways of trading eggs for apples and things like that, if you got skills in carpentry, then and your neighbor needs, some carpentry, and yet your neighbor has an orchard, there you go. This is how we work together. And here we see Tyson Foods, right? World's second largest processor and marketer of chicken, beef, and pork, right? Carolinas, Tyson was everywhere, living in the Carolinas. Tyson, huge, but now they're owned by the CCP, basically. And, record now, it hiking beef, chicken, pork prices by double digits. It's going through the roof. This is, again, a way too perfectly constructed symphony of destruction that I don't think is all about just the sun. This is not all about just a natural cycle. And these natural cycles can be tinkered with.
Right. These entities work through alchemy. They work through layering information upon information upon information that brings a certain result. And they're very, very good at it.
Absolutely. U.S. cow herd drops to 7-year low. Beef prices set to rise further. Sassy. That really got sassy because she's partial to beef. So yeah, here we go with the food chain. I mean, it's just so absolutely obvious. We actually have a company here, Tesco, going to cut hundreds of jobs as it stops doing meat, fish, and deli counters in general, this supermarket. And we have 70% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. That means that there's nothing left over. You're totally dependent on the next paycheck to come in. What happens when it doesn't get deposited? What happens when something happens? You didn't do something you were supposed to do according to some sort of dates for men. And then, we're looking at situations in which so many people can become homeless. And and yet the American dream, so to speak, of owning your own home is going away. As you see, because of the plague on the land, the housing market, the middle class is getting priced out. So really, it already was so hard to secure your own home. And now you're only going to really have the wealthiest people being able to own their own homes, which has a lot of tax advantages. And like the home that we found, for instance, if we were to rent it, it would be 3 times as expensive as the mortgage is. So, there you go. And you will own nothing and you will be happy. So says the World Economic Forum, right? This is the world they envision, is they own everything. We don't own anything. And they think we're going to be happy?
Right. And every penny and every morsel of energy that you use, they will account for it. So there you go.
Because we know the whole carbon-based credit system is what they have in store.
Right. Yeah.
Now, this isn't good because the U.S. is weighing seasoned Venezuelan oil. In case you missed it, Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua, and we're going to add another Latin American country that we're going to talk about in a few minutes to the list in some ways. Well, they've made agreements with China. And when you talk about China, you're talking China and Russia now. And you might as well say China, Russia, Pakistan, North Korea, Iran. It's actually a lot of countries. We have a new axis and a new allies building like we had in World War II. And sides are being chosen here. And so any sort of direct confrontation with, say, Venezuela, for instance, or with Nicaragua or Cuba, that's a direct confrontation with China and Russia now. So if they think that they're going to do things like, any sort of seizing of oil, that could be a big-time trigger towards that hashtag number 3, WW.
Yeah, so kind of watching and waiting on that.
Absolutely, yeah. If you look closely, everything is kind of coming together towards that end. Lukashenko makes God claim. According to Belarusian strongman Alexander Lukashenko, the Almighty is on his side, and he actually said, according to Lukashenko, God is not only Belarusian today, but has been for decades. You got to wonder, how do these people get into power? And somebody put a thread up on Godlike Productions, and all they said was Poopy Pants is going to speak at 3:15. We all knew who it was.
And how does he get that name?
I guess it depends.
It's through reputation.
Do we really think that these people that we see, and then when you really get to know what they think, I think one of the most revealing things in some ways is the social media, because then you start to understand, wow, so much of the leadership, not only are they questionable from an ethical standpoint in many ways, you got to question the IQ, just the plain old IQ, that they don't seem capable of making really good, solid, logical decisions. And it just alludes to everything we see people-wise. This is all just actors. Really, they're taking orders. They're not giving orders. Well, they might be giving orders, but they're giving orders that they're given. That's the bottom line here, because most of these people aren't intelligent enough. They don't really understand situations. They don't even know their geography in many cases. Yeah, it's just amazing. And Germany reveals new troop deployment. Berlin's going to send additional forces to Lithuania as NATO buildup close to Russia's border continues. Absolutely no de-escalation really going on. This is just basically kind of building still. And you see Stoltenberg, NATO is considering increasing their presence on the eastern flank on a long-term basis. This is exactly what will irritate the situation even more. We talked about the plane loads that are coming in now of people leaving from Fort Bragg and other areas. And they're arriving, over in Poland. Poland was part of the USSR. And again, when you look at the map of Europe, it's changed constantly, never-ending, nonstop changes. Whole countries come into existence. Like tiny little Lithuania was at one time larger than Poland, larger than Germany, larger than Russia. Really, it's just, it's never-ending conflict and warfare that doesn't get anywhere.
No, it doesn't. And it's not supposed to, because if it were to get somewhere like in a peaceful place, we would all have so much energy and we would have so much abundance. It wouldn't benefit them.
Yeah, absolutely. These wars are not made to be won. They're all about basically creating loosh, which again is energetic energy and food source for certain beings, creating the conditions where souls don't evolve and don't ascend up and out of the 3D, 4D loop. And the obvious part, creating money and control. It's all just a means to an end, controlling resources and ever increasing the police state. And all this talk about the super duper hypersonic weapons that are 5 times the speed of sound. And every time we look, we keep getting reminded just how far ahead Russia and China are. And again, this is alluding to, well, in our minds, it's because, again, there's controllers that have technology that would blow people's minds. And they're just basically hedging their bets on, which side they want to see in control when the smoke is clearing.
Mm-hmm. Right. These entities all kind of work the same way across the board, with saying that, just look at the medical system. It's not set up to cure anything ever.
No, absolutely. And we have the UK. Now, this is something that might be bigger than many perhaps even realize or even know of this area. You guys remember the Falkland Islands War? That was a brief little conflict there between the UK and Argentina. The UK reaffirmed sovereignty over the Falkland Islands after China-Argentina joint statement. This is big. So again, China is making huge inroads in Latin America, also in Africa, but especially in Latin America. Think about that. That's our backyard, so to speak, right? Meaning the U.S. And what they have now is, I could just see, it's again, moving your pieces. This is chess pieces going on. UK Foreign Minister Liz Truss has said that the United Kingdom completely rejects any questions over its sovereignty of the Falkland Islands following a joint statement by President Xi Jinping and his Argentine counterpart, in which Beijing voiced support for Argentina's claim over the territory. And this meeting happened over the Olympics, as you see here, trapped in IMF debt, International Monetary Fund. This is how everything is controlled. It's through the money supply. And so if we could get out of it, and people like Michael Tellinger, trying to give us ideas with Ubuntu, creating breakaway societies where we can, and not taking part, doing our own thing, coming up with our own trade agreements with, our own fellow partners in these endeavors. This is the key, because here you see Argentina is now turning to Russia and is joining China's Belt and Road. So effectively, this is what happens. The money lenders, again, talk about those ROTHS childs and other families. I remember my aunt, who lived to be about 96, She used to always say things like, "Turn off that light." What, do you think we're related to the Rockefellers? She used to always say things like that. But yes, these families, which are of certain bloodlines, which again control the monetary system, they control the puppets that are on the thrones, so to speak. And they don't care because, again, if you're part of that system, this is the system, that controls the globe. And so now here you go. So, Argentina effectively is going to be under the Sino-Russian control. And, with the coming conflict that appears to be on the horizon, that doesn't bode well as well. And so I was really curious to see what the fleets were looking like. And here we have over here the USS Kearsarge, which is in the Caribbean, and USS Wasp, because this is getting to be a little bit hotter area. We just talked about Venezuela, targeting Venezuelan oil. Then you have Nicaragua, and you have Cuba. And then now we have Argentina. And we know that China is looking to establish a base over here in Africa. Yeah, this is all positioning. It's getting yourself up for the conflict, which is, in their eyes, inevitable. Now, we were really loaded with tons of fleet available off of China's coast, and things have shifted now. Probably keeping an eye not just on the Ukraine, but also on Syria and the Middle East. So, 96 ships are underway at the moment. Very interesting times, to say the least. Lots of buzz about things going hot in the middle of February.
Yeah. So, we just sort of keeping an eye on that, and the information, whatever we get, we pass on to you to the best of our ability.
And we see Britain setting themselves up for a Pearl Harbor style attack if it hits the fan. All 6 Royal Navy destroyers in port amid heightened tension with Russia. So, again, would you really want to put all your ducks in a row to be shot at the Ducks Gallery? But this is what happened with Pearl Harbor, and this is part of the people that understand what really happened with Pearl Harbor. Is there were people that knew what was coming and did nothing. But, again, it's all part of the plan, all part of the script. And here we have 18 best medicinal trees for your homestead. So I'm not going to go through all the benefits, but I'll give you guys the link. But alder, there's a lot of trees with medicinal benefit that you might not recognize. And this one's an astringent, can be used to wash wounds, heal skin disorders, and also help with itching. Apples, obviously, you could eat apples. Great resource, and you get a lot of apples per tree. But also, peeled apples can help to relieve diarrhea. Apple cider vinegar can restore gut health, promote weight loss, and has a lot of other benefits. Ash, another tree, and this, you can make a tea with it, or it could be an laxative. You can help with gout, jaundice, rheumatism. Birch, and think of birch beer, and you can make tea with this. Another one that could be used for a laxative, also can be used with mouth sores, relieve pain, eczema, psoriasis. Cedar, elder, and gotta say, I love elderberry tea. I'm addicted to it, and that's a great one for strengthening the lungs and immune system as well. Hawthorne, hazelnut, obviously, you can eat them. They also made tea from the bark of the hazelnut trees to treat hives and fevers. Poultice was made from the bark. It was used on cuts, sores, tumors, and even skin cancer. And that was what the indigenous people did. And holly. All holly tree varieties have berries that can cause vomiting and diarrhea when ingested in large quantities. Be aware of that. But the natives have used it to treat cardiac problems. Linden, flowers, bark, and leaves can be used to make an herbal infusion, treat high blood pressure, anxiety, digestive issues. Mountain ash that could actually help with some itching problems down below. We'll just leave it at that.
Nice.
Yes. Oak. And you can make a tea with that one. It can also help with chronic diarrhea and mucus discharge. Pine. Teas from the twigs and needles is high in vitamin C. Can be used for sore throats, colds, coughs. Can also be used as a wound wash because it's antiseptic. Poplar. And this one is an anti-inflammatory, painkiller, blood thinner, relief for chest congestion. Slippery elm can relieve symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome and reflux. Sugar maples. Tea made from sugar maple bark was used to treat diarrhea as well, also as a cough remedy and expectorant. Walnuts, and the oil extracted from walnut kernels is used to treat colic. And then we have willow, and that bark is also used for treating pain, headaches, and acting as a blood thinner. So, pretty cool stuff. Things to think about as you're setting up your homestead. I want to thank you guys for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We really couldn't do it without you guys there. Patreon obviously would be monthly support. Ko-Fi, you could do a one-time support of the channel, or you could do monthly there as well. Do check out Evolutionary Energy Arts. Learn more about us and our services as well. If you need to make an appointment, it's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@protonmail.com. And do check out Medicinal Foods. Lots of stuff to help you with detoxing and building your immune system. Use the coupon code EEA, and that gets you a discount and does support the channel. So be prepared out there, guys.
God bless, source bless, and namaste.
Namaste.